the woman that rides the beast. I want us to start in Daniel chapter 7. How many of you in the room have done a detailed study of Daniel chapter 7? How many of you have done that? So if you look at your Bible, and have you got many markings on Daniel 7? Yeah, you got a few hands, yeah? Well, what we want to do, it's going to be really illustrated, and I think it's going to be quite straightforward. What I want to do is to bring to life Daniel chapter 7. It's amazing because if we can understand this vision that Daniel receives here 2,500 years ago, we can bring it then into Revelation, which I want to do, and we can start looking out into the world today and identifying what's going on. Okay? Right then, so, do you know that image? Where do you find that image? What book do you find that image in? Yeah, great, Daniel. Daniel chapter 2, thank you. And you've got Babylon, Medes and Persians, Greeks, Romans, and Europe, okay? So head all the way down to feet. You know that, don't you? Yeah, you all know that. Well, we all know Daniel 2 really well. We probably know Daniel 7 a little less. But Daniel 7 is just as straightforward, really. And I'm going to prove that this morning. Okay, so what you have in Daniel 7, if you open up and you have a look at that chapter, you have these three animals and then a fourth, okay? So you have a lion with eagle's wings, okay? You have a bear with 3 ribs. You have a leopard with wings, and then you have a fourth beast, which Daniel can't even describe. He can understand a lion and a bear and a leopard. This fourth one, though it looks a bit like a croc there, doesn't it? But this fourth one is just so unrecognizable, he can't really describe it. So he describes it in different ways, and it's really frightening. That's the point. This fourth beast is really frightening. The first one are the Babylonians. The second one, the Medes and Persians. The third one, the third one's an easy one, isn't it? A leopard, what's it known for? Speed. And who led the Grecian armies at the beginning? Who was it? Conquered the world? Yes? Alexander the Great. Okay. And it's recorded that he died crying, that he conquered the world and there was nothing else to achieve. Okay. And then this fourth beast. So what I want to do, and you might think, this sounds really, really hard, and it's going to be easier than yesterday. I pushed you hard yesterday. It's all going to be illustrated. But what we want to do is to look at this fourth beast with a little horn, thank you. This fourth beast with a little horn, and I'm going to give you 10 characteristics, right? 10 features, 10 details here in Daniel chapter 7 that's going to tell you without doubt what it is, okay? And this is really relevant because when you look at Daniel chapter 7, but as you go down Daniel chapter 7, you see that each of the animals, they die, okay? And the fourth beast is alive and well until the return of the Lord Jesus Christ. And it is Christ and the saints that destroy this fourth beast. So if you look at Daniel chapter 7, all the beasts die except the fourth, which tells us that this beast will be in existence when Christ returns. So then by inference, it's around today, which is pretty amazing, isn't it? Something that was written 2,500 years ago, and it's telling us that it's around today. So we need to find out what it is. Yeah, is that fair? Yeah? Okay. Right then, with the man in the screen, it gives you a bit of a clue to my conclusion. But forget it at the moment. And what I want to do, I want to pick out these verses. If we read verse 7, 20, and verse 24, please, the first characteristic of what this beast is all about.
Daniel 7, verse 7, 20, and 24. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had iron teeth, huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns.
Thank you. Verse 20 now.
And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even that of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows.
And then verse 24.
And the 10 horns came of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings.
Okay, a lot of information there, and you might think, well, that's a bit overwhelming. Let's not worry about it. We're going to take each element piece by piece, okay? If I were to ask you from those 3 verses, this is one of the things about Bible prophecy. It's very self-contained. It tells you. Daniel chapter 7, you don't have to speculate what it's all about. It actually tells you. All we have to do is read it. So, it tells you in one of those 3 verses what those 10 horns represent. Go on. 10 kings, okay? Now, Babylonians, Medo-Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans, okay? I'm going to make a suggestion to you, and we're going to build from this suggestion, and then at the end we can see whether it's true or not. But we've got to start off with something. We've got to have like a foundation. And my foundation stone for you this afternoon or this morning is that this 4th beast represents in some form Rome, okay? There's 3 beasts that go before it, like the 3 metals. It seems a fair assumption to make that it's Roman, okay? That's all I want to do. I want you to make that assumption it's Roman. We're going to work it out, and then at the end, we're going to see whether it's true or not, okay? It's a hypothesis. Well, if we look in our history books, we will find that the Roman Empire came to an end when the barbarians, right? There were 10 barbarian states, and they came and they invaded over hundreds of years the Roman Empire. And these are the 10. Right? And we're already told that they're 10 kings. Their long names: Huns, Vandals, Visigoths, Burgundians, Gepidae, Lombards, the Franks. I'm sure you recognize that. The French, the Suevi, the Alans, and the Bavarians. These were barbarian states, and they came against the Roman Empire. History tells us that. Okay? And these things took place nearly 1,000 years after these things were written by Daniel. So Daniel didn't know about these things. It had to be in this vision, okay? So that's the 10 kings. Verse 8. Can we just read verse 8 now, please? We're just going to try and build a picture. Right? It's a really lovely picture. Verse 8.
Same chapter.
Yeah, we're going to stay in Daniel 7. We're not moving out.
I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things.
Okay, so let's just look at it. What do we read? We read that there is a little horn here that comes up, and it's described in such a way it has eyes like the eyes of man, speak great things. But it's a little horn, okay? It's a little horn. Now, what we know when we look at our history books, the Roman Empire came to an end around about AD 476, so in the 5th century, approaching AD 500. And during that century, during the 5th century, Romans were really, really frightened. You imagine if you're a Roman and you're looking outside the walls of the Roman city and you see all these barbarians and they've got their drums, right? And they've got their shields and their swords. And they're huge, and they haven't shaved, right? They're really, really frightening. And what happened during that 100 years? The Romans started to place their confidence in the church, which is interesting. And if we look at the beginning of the Roman Catholic Church, it was during this period when these barbarians were invading Rome. And out of this kind of horrific scene for the Roman Empire, the church stepped forward and said, you can put your trust in God, which was a good message, but they didn't believe in the right things. And you can look at encyclopedias like Britannica, and you can find out that during this time, something emerged out of these 10 kingdoms, these 10 barbarian states that are acting on this 4th head, right? The Roman Empire. Can you imagine it? You've got this 4th beast, which is a symbol of Rome, and 10 horns pop out of it. Okay? So the 10 barbarian states is an unusual picture, but it's a picture all the same. And then out of these 10 horns, these barbarian states, another kingdom emerges. And this kingdom has eyes like the mouth of a man and speaks great things. He's different. He's altogether different, okay? And isn't that amazing that that happened at the same time? Now, if you look at verse 8 here, it is a little horn, okay? And these horns we've already read are kingdoms. We're not going to make this complex. You can all understand this. You've told me how much of my mathematics you understood. So you're really, really clever, intelligent young people. So you can understand this. These are 10 kingdoms. One kingdom emerges that has this certain character. It's got the eyes of man, and speaks great things. We're going to look at that in a moment. So it's a talking horn, which is a little unusual, isn't it? It's a talking horn, but it's little. It's small. Now, it is quite an extraordinary building to look at, St. Peter's. But what's interesting, St. Peter's there and Vatican State is a state, it's a country. Did you know Vatican State is a country in its own right? Has anyone been to the United Nations? If you go there, there is a seat, right, with the words, it's amazing. So you've got, as you look at this hall, it's got numbers everywhere, and everyone's a number. Every country is a number, with the exception of Vatican State. And you know what it's got on the seat? I can't remember what the number of Britain is. Let's just say 37, okay? So the person who represents Britain sits in seat number 37, and they're all numbers, with the exception of Vatican State. You know what it's on? What's on that chair? The Holy See. It's got all numbers, and then you've got the Holy See, right? He's different. And it is actually the smallest country in the world. It's a country. And the country was formed in 1929, okay? And it was established by the Lateran Treaty, which created the Vatican City. And it's only 109 acres. It's really, really small. And it's a country in its own right. Isn't that amazing? 1929. And it says that this was going to be a little kingdom. We're going to see it's a religious kingdom, okay? So there couldn't have been a more appropriate, a more accurate description of this horn. Okay. We now start getting into quite a bit of detail. We've looked at verse 24 and we've looked at verse 8. And what we see, if you look at your Bibles, it tells you that this little kingdom is a little aggressive. It's not a happy kingdom at the beginning. And what it does, it subdues, it removes 3 kings. So let's just think logically. These horns are kingdoms, right, of the barbarians, and it's telling us, if our interpretation is correct, that this little religious kingdom that came up amongst these 10, so it was in the same geographical location, it was going to remove 3 of the kings. And if we look at our history books again, just before AD 800, we're looking at now, just before 1,000 years of something called the Holy Roman Empire, history tells us that the Roman Catholic Church destroyed 3 of these original 10. And they were the Huns and the Vandals and the Lombards. I find this really, you might just think that they're facts. And they are facts. But for me, a baptized believer, a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ, who tries to follow the Bible, I love this. Because this tells me that stuff that was written so long ago, I can believe in it. It's not just the messages of the Lord Jesus Christ and his life and his ministry and some wonderful words, but it's underpinned by some real good facts, right? God's little signature all the way through the Bible say, I am he. I make a statement and I make these predictions and they come to pass. And do you know why these 3 kingdoms were destroyed? Do you know why? Well, they were called Arian, right? And what that means is that they believed in the unity of God. We're Arian. We believe in the unity of God. We don't believe in God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Ghost, do we? We don't believe in that. We don't believe in the Trinity. So we would be Arian, okay? Well, 3 of these 10 tribes were Arian. They believed in the unity of God. They didn't believe in the Trinity. If you didn't believe in the Trinity during this time, you were in big trouble. And so, of these 10 kingdoms, the Roman Catholic Church the Roman armies of the Catholic Church destroyed them. And that was just before AD 800. And when the last one was removed, then we get into 1,000 years. This is European history. I know we're a little removed from that over here, but we get into 1,000 years of European history of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay? It's really fascinating. I find this, I love this stuff. Those of you who know me well, I really, really enjoy this stuff. Well, verse 8 tells us that this kingdom has the eyes of a man. So it's telling us that a man, one man, is symbolic of this kingdom. So ask yourself the question, of all the kingdoms and countries around the world, could only one man describe that country? Can you think of it? England, Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand. Well, you've all had different presidents and prime ministers and kings and queens. Could there be one person that kind of personifies, defines that kingdom? Yep, the Pope. Is there another one? Let's ask ourselves the question. Daniel wrote this 2,500 years ago. Is there another one, right? You might say Muhammad, but who does Muhammad define? There's all kinds of Arab states and kingdoms. And what's interesting, of these Arab states and kingdoms, they've had other rulers, haven't they? They might be Muslim, but they have leaders, they have politicians. Whereas Vatican State, this country, has always had just one person. Who is he? The Pope. It's had no one else. From the very inception, it's always just had one person. Right? It's interesting, isn't it? Again, if you go to Encyclopedia Britannica, it says the Pope is the successor of St. Peter, the Bishop of Rome, and the head of the Catholic Church. The Pope. So it might be Pope Francis today, but it's always been just this Pope, the eyes of a man and speaking great things. It's always been this person. So as soon as this little kingdom emerged out of this head of Rome, in the middle of these 10 kingdoms, okay, it's always been defined as one person, the Pope, okay? Yeah? You happy with that? Okay. Well, we go on. It would be diverse. Has anyone got anything different in verse 24 from diverse? What does diverse mean? It means different, doesn't it? Yeah? So think about the countries that we have here today. We think about England and Canada and America and New Zealand and Australia. Have I missed out anyone? No? Think about how your countries are run. So you might have a king or a queen, Queen Elizabeth, some of you. Or you might have a president that you might not want at the moment. Or you might, depending upon the kind of person you are. But they are political regimes, aren't they? They're political regimes. This is really interesting. You can go on the internet and access now the CIA website. And the CIA have compiled something called the World Factbook. And what they do, really, this is all about terrorism. They used to go around the world, they would drop their agents off, and they would survey all the countries, and then they'd gather all the information, and they would compile this dossier, basically, this big database, describing really the way that certain countries were run. We call that governance, okay? You can look at this, and it's a template, and you can go into England and Canada or in Australia or in America, New Zealand. You can look at all those, and they all, different names, but they're the same. And then you go to this kingdom, and it's so different. So the chief of state in England, who would we have? In England, come on, it's an easy question. Who's chief of state in England? Queen Elizabeth II, thank you. Who is the head of government? Theresa May. At the moment, I think she's still there, okay? The cabinet would be the Conservative Party. And the elections, well, that's the big problem in Britain at the moment. The election came a little too early and she didn't expect the result. But it happens every 3 to 5 years. That would be Britain. So Theresa May has replaced other politicians, either Conservative or Labour leaders, but this is altogether different. So you've got the chief of state, you've got the Pope, okay? A religious leader. The head of government, the secretary, this state cardinal. No other countries like that. The cabinet, the pontifical commission appointed by the Pope. And the elections, well, there are no elections. The Pope is elected for life. There was one exception. Does anyone know his name? Who resigned? Hasn't happened for 600 years. Who resigned from being the Pope not so long ago? Can you remember his name? They call him the dog, the bulldog, right? What was his name? Ratzinger. Do you remember that? Joseph Ratzinger. He resigned and Pope Francis came in, and now suddenly the Catholic Church is really, really popular. But that's the exception. Hasn't been like that for 500 years. If you're there for life, okay? But that doesn't happen in any other country. So it's diverse, it's different. Can you see that? By just looking at the CIA website, you can see it's really, really different. It speaks great words. Can someone read verse 25, please, wherever the microphone is? Can we just read verse 25? This little horn is going to speak great words.
He shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law, and they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time.
Okay, thank you. Speak great words. That sounds quite grand, doesn't it? Speak great words. Well, he has. He's very popular. Time Man of the Year. He's been viewed to be the most popular leader in the world. Presidents and prime ministers quote him. Pope Francis, in all intents and purposes, is an incredibly popular man, and he's highly respected around the world. And you can see the great audiences that assemble to listen to him. Right? It's great words, but that's not what it means. It doesn't mean what you see on the screen. If you look in a concordance to this phrase, great words, it's related to blasphemy. Okay? The idea is words of blasphemy. That's the idea here, great words of blasphemy. And when we look in the Bible, we find that there are two definitions. There's only two definitions on blasphemy. And they're found in the New Testament. The first one is when a man claims to be God. And that's found in John chapter 10, verses 31 to 33. And you can look at that. A man claiming to be God. And the other one is a man claiming to have the power to forgive sins. Only Jesus can forgive sins. Mark chapter 2, verses 5 to 7. So a man claiming to be God, and anyone who says, I can forgive your sins, that is blasphemy, okay? That is blasphemy. We've only given two definitions of blasphemy. So keep that in mind. It will wear out the saints. We read verse 25. What do you think that means, to wear something out? Well, it's a phrase today, isn't it? You get tired, but it means more than that. It means persecuted. Okay? And we don't need to dwell too long on this. But the saints, when you look at the saints, it relates to the Jews and Bible-believing Christians. And the Roman Catholic Church has persecuted Jews and Bible-believing Christians for a long, long time. So the Roman Catholic Inquisition, you've all heard of that. That started in Spain in the 5th century by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Yeah? Yeah. Thank you. Right. Right. And that lasted for 400 years. And this was all about, you see, Jews, what do Jews believe in? They believe in the singleness of God. And real Bible-believing Christians also believed in the singleness of God, and that's why they were persecuted. And big leading authorities like the Spanish royal family were involved in signing off this Inquisition, and people were put to death. So if we lived all that time ago, would you come to Bible school? Would you? Knowing that if a Roman authority came into this room, or an American authority for today, came into this room, you'd be put to death or have some kind of inquisition, would you do it? I don't know. Only you can answer that. But that's what Christians and Bible believers had to do for a long, long time, okay? He will think to change times and laws in verse 25. Well, we know that the Pope changed the calendar. Again, if you look at Roman Catholic sources, you read things like the Pope can modify divine law. He acts as God upon the earth. He can change the time. He can set up a new calendar. And 1 billion Roman Catholics will follow that. And then it says this persecution would be for a time and a times and the dividing of time. Have you seen anything like this idea of 12, 60 days? Has anyone seen that before? Yeah? One or two? Well, a time, times, and the dividing of time. The word time there, if you look in your concordance, you will find that it means literally a Jewish year. That's all it means. It means a Jewish year. And a Jewish year, a lunar calendar, a Jewish year would be 12 months with 30 days per month, okay? Which is 360 days. We have 365, don't we? Leap year, 366. But 360 days in the Jewish calendar. And often when you're looking at Daniel and Revelation, there's this approach really to interpret Bible prophecy, and it's called a time for a year or a day for a year Bible principle. And it comes from, and you've got the references on the screen, when the children of Israel, remember when they went in and they surveyed the land, they were there for 40 days, and 10 came back and said it's not very good, and 2 came back and said we can do it. But because 10 came back and there was a wicked, evil report, the children of Israel, for every day they were surveying the land of Israel, they were sent into the wilderness for 40 years. That's where it comes from, a day for a year, okay? That's where it comes from, a day for a year. So there's this interpretation, a day for a year. So, this is interesting. If you have a day for a year, a time is 360 days. A times is a double portion of that. And then half a time, right, is half of that. And if you add them up as one sentence, you get that calculation on the screen. Okay, you get 1,260 days. 360 plus 720 plus 180 equals 1,260, okay? So just go with me for a moment. If you apply that, you get some interesting things. So, 1,260 years, we're being told that this little horn will persecute Bible believers, Christians and Jews. And it was the Bishop of Rome who became the first bishop of the world. In AD 529, Benedict I became the acclaimed first bishop of Rome as the universal bishop, right? He became the head officially of the Roman Catholic Church. It was the first time that happened. In AD 529, if you add on 1,260 years, you get to the French Revolution and the storming of the Bastille, 1789. And there were these huge changes, these momentous changes that were taking place in France. And really, the paupers and the peasants and those that lived in France, they overturned the royal family in France. Liberty, fraternity, equality, that was the mantra that went forth. And it was during this period of time that there was a real hostility towards the Roman Catholic Church. And the Pope, in fact, was removed from Rome twice during this period. Isn't that interesting? This was the beginning of the failure of the Roman Catholic Church. So it starts off in AD 529, you run 1,260 years, and you come to the very beginning of the French Revolution that was going to really define the demise of the Roman Catholic Church and was going to remove it for a time. Isn't that amazing? Do you think that's interesting? I think it's incredible. I think that's incredible. It's not 1261 or 1259, exactly 1,260 years from the first official Bishop of Rome, where he says, I'm no longer just a Bishop of Rome, I'm now the Pope of the earth. And you add on 1,260 years, and suddenly you've got this huge hostility in Europe and France, and the removal of the royal family, the storming of the Bastille, and the removal of the Catholic Church. And that moved all the way forward to men like Napoleon. And Napoleon was personally involved in actually taking the Pope off the throne and putting him in exile, that the Pope was actually placed in prison during this time. Okay? So that's fascinating, isn't it? And that happened in 1809. So all these things have happened, okay? So, we are investigators. We're looking at this fourth horn. And I would suggest, right? I would suggest that that's what we've got. Shall we see him come again? There you go. That's who he is. And that's very consistent with Daniel chapter 2, isn't it? It's fourth kingdom, 10 barbarian states, a little horn with his character. He's religious. He speaks these great words of blasphemy. The other kingdoms weren't doing blasphemy. This is something about God. This is something about the land of Israel. This is something about Bible believers, true Bible believers. He persecutes for a time. All these things. Isn't that amazing? So, I've put some evidence to you. We've done it relatively quickly. What do you think? Do you think that's good? Do you think that's fair? Yeah? It's pretty fair, isn't it? And all we've done, we've known a little bit of history. I haven't done too much, really. I haven't pulled out lots of history. I've just given you a sprinkle, really, of what's happened in the past. But that's the lovely thing about the Bible. If we look at it and we read it and we have a bit of faith and we're prepared to open up our hearts and minds and test certain things, God will give us the answer. And the answer's there in Daniel chapter 7. Right, so what I want to do, I want to go to Revelation now. I'm not going to do too much on this because we can pick this up tomorrow, because otherwise we're going to rush this. So we're going to stop in a few minutes and then we can have a bit of a chat. Right? So all I want to do is show you about Daniel chapter 7. But let's just race through this. There's Revelation 12 verse 3. Think about what we've just looked at Daniel chapter 7. What in Revelation 12 verse 3 tells you that there's a Daniel link. What's the link with Daniel? The horns, exactly. We've got 7 heads, and 10 horns. That's what we've got. So we've got the 10 horns as we've got on the screen here. But we've got then an additional set of details. We've got 7 heads, and this fourth beast is a red dragon, okay? We're going to look at this tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Can someone read Revelation 13 verse 1? Yep. And then you do the second one. Thank you. Revelation 13 verse 1.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy.
Okay, so I think we've seen the link now. We've got 10 horns, but just with our keenness, right? Our keen attention to detail here. You've got 10 horns, which is a Daniel 7 link. We've got 7 heads, which is the same as Revelation 12. But it's not. Can you remember what Revelation 12 said? What did it look like? Anyone remember? Huh? Red dragon, thank you. Right. What have we got here? A beast that rises up out of the sea. Okay? So you've got this commonality, but it's different. It's kind of different. It's a different phase. That's what Revelation is showing us here. It's just a different phase of this Roman power. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Okay? Shall we go on? Can someone read chapter 13, verse 11? That's my best depiction of what this one looks like. Go on, please. Revelation 13, verse 11.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
Okay, now it gets interesting, doesn't it? It's a beast. Okay? But what's different here? It's got 2 horns. Yeah? Ah, very good, right? So it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's It's camouflaging itself, really. It's under disguise. You've got to be really astute to understand what this is all about, okay? And it's portrayed here as a lamb, but it speaks as a dragon. And what chapter did we see the dragon in? Chapter 12, you see? We're not doing anything hard here, are we? Just picking out the things and think, oh, that's the 10 horns, and we've seen a dragon, and then we've got a beast out of the sea. Oh, it's back to a dragon. Oh, it goes back. Yeah, that's all we're doing. Yeah? Right, so, and then we're not going to, we'll look at that tomorrow. Have a look at Revelation 17 now. Okay, Revelation 17. And as you look down here, where can you find the description of what we've been looking at? Can you spot it? Okay, shall we read verse 3? Verse 3, someone want to read verse 3 for me? Want to read verse 3, please? Okay. For the purposes of recording, your voice is amplified.
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-covered beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
So, yeah, thank you, Beck. So, okay then. What's different here? What have we got? Remember the title of today's talk? You've got the woman, the rise, the beast. Well, eventually we've got here, right at the end of the phases here. But what's going on? What have we got? Well, we've got here, it's a scarlet-coloured beast. It's a scarlet, red. Where have we come across the red? You remember? Revelation 12. Revelation 12. Okay, so that's one connection. What else have we got here? It's names of blasphemy. Where are we seeing blasphemy? Can anyone remember the chapter? Pardon? Thank you. Revelation 13, right? And also Daniel 7, okay? Having 7 heads, no longer 1 with 2 horns. We're back to square one, right? We're back to square one. Just in case we were getting confused for a moment, we're back. And what is it? 7 heads and 10 horns, okay? And that's where we're going to finish this morning. Now, my question to you, if you can tell me what the development of these various beasts are, it's going to help us tomorrow. I don't know if you know. You could ask mums and dads. But if anyone's got an explanation of taking us from Revelation 12 to Revelation 17 tomorrow, I think that would be awesome, right? That's what we want to do. And then we can look at man of sin, son of perdition, which is a prophecy in Thessalonians, okay? So it's a range of things that we're looking at today. But what we've shown this morning, Daniel is self-contained, and it interprets itself, and it's the foundation. You may have heard, I'm sure you've heard, that you need to understand Daniel to interpret Revelation. Well, Daniel 7, you'd have no idea what the beasts were, would you, if you didn't understand Daniel 7? You'd know nothing about the 10 horns, really. So you've got to understand Daniel chapter 7, and then that allows you to kind of progress all the way through from Revelation 12 to 17. And what I would suggest, what I would say, and you can let me know tomorrow, God willing, that what you're having in Revelation 12 to 17 are pictures of this Roman kingdom. All you've got in Daniel 7 is a snapshot, one moment in time. But here then, Revelation blows up, really, or blows out, I should say, blows out this snapshot and just gives you these detailed pictures over the history of time of what that symbol looks like in Daniel chapter 7. Fair?